The last time I had the dream, I was walking down the school hallway. And that's when I started to notice that something's wrong. Everyone I cared about has been systematically replaced. And finally, I want to scream, and I'm like, why are they replacing every single character with someone who is diverse?
One major development going on now involves more to do with Rachel Zegler and her attitude towards South Park Studios and Paramount after learning about what they are planning for their upcoming special called the DEI Special.
When South Park decided to take aim at Rachel Zegler and the Snow White remake, no one expected what happened next. The star of Disney's troubled production reportedly went ballistic after seeing herself parodied on the hit animated show, adding yet another explosive chapter to what might be Hollywood's most chaotic remake.
Exactly what they're doing, and that is why we hate the diversity, equity, and inclusion casting and writing in movies.
Behind closed doors at Disney, executives panicked as their $300 million investment faced fresh ridicule. While online, fans couldn't get enough of the drama. But what really happened when Rachel Zegler saw herself lampooned on national television?
I'm a narcissist.
And could this be the final nail in the coffin for Disney's Snow White before it even hits theaters? Rachel Zegler's involvement in the Snow White 2025 remake has been a lightning rod for controversy from day one.
Hollywood, baby. I say, if I'm gonna stand there 18 hours in a dress of an iconic Disney princess, I deserve to be paid for every hour that it is streamed on.
The West Side Story actress found herself at the center of a firestorm after making comments that many fans felt disrespected the beloved 1937 classic.
I never want it to come off as me being ungrateful for the opportunities I have.
In interviews, she described the original film as outdated and openly criticized its storyline, claiming her version would completely reimagine the character.
I never want it to come off as me being ungrateful for the opportunities I have. I can also be having the greatest time and simultaneously wishing people would stop sending me death threats.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love, Zegler stated in one particularly viral clip. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be.
Because this woman is a pig, and you fired Gina Carano for far less than this nonsense.
These remarks didn't sit well with longtime Disney fans, who felt the actress was dismissing the magic that made Snow White a masterpiece.
Please?
For which movie?
Fan forums erupted with criticism, and social media campaigns against the remake gained momentum with each new interview. The casting choice itself had already stirred heated debate. Some questioned why Disney would cast a Latina actress as Snow White, a character whose name explicitly references her fair skin. Defenders argued that talent should trump physical resemblance, pointing to Zegler's acclaimed performance in West Side Story.
Snow White, budget $250 million, box office $43 million. Oh, but it's only been 2 days, give it a chance. No, I'm not going to give it a chance.
Critics countered that Disney seemed to be making changes for political reasons rather than storytelling ones. Industry insiders noted that the studio was caught in an impossible position, criticized for lack of diversity in some projects, while simultaneously attacked for reimagining traditional characters in others.
I don't f***ing know. I'm not even going to talk about this. People are like, oh wow, Snow White flopped. Who is surprised? You cast arguably the least genuine, most out of touch, and disliked person in her industry, and her industry is Hollywood. And the bad guy is Gal Gadot.
The debate intensified when Zegler herself addressed the controversy, suggesting that those upset about her casting should hit the unfollow button rather than engage with her vision for the character.
Our rights are on the line, folks.
Bitch!
The right to buy Cosby sweaters?
Come on.
That's the face
Go
of a
vote blue.
serial killer.
And if you disagree with this sentiment, just hit the unfollow button.
Meanwhile, reports of behind-the-scenes tension with co-star Gal Gadot only added fuel to the fire. Industry insiders whispered about awkward exchanges on set, with Rachel allegedly complaining that Gadot's evil queen was stealing focus from her lead character. The rumors seemed to gain credibility when the two actresses avoided each other at a major industry event, refusing to make eye contact during what should have been a unified promotional appearance.
It's no longer 1937, and we absolutely wrote a Snow White.
That laugh.
That is
Not going to be
yeah.
saved by
You
the
wrote
prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can.
Body language experts analyzed footage of their interactions, noting the uncomfortable distance they maintained and the apparent reluctance to acknowledge one another's presence.
You don't particularly see people who, look like me or are me playing roles like that. So it was definitely, when it got announced,
He wasn't a stalker, by the way.
thing that was like trending on Twitter for days because all of the people were angry.
One source claimed that handlers were instructed to ensure they were never left alone together, a remarkable precaution for the two leads of a major Disney production. Disney executives grew increasingly nervous as production costs ballooned amidst multiple rounds of reshoots, with the budget reportedly climbing well above $300 million. The film's release date had already been pushed back twice, with each delay generating fresh speculation about creative conflicts and studio interference.
Snow White limps to alarming $42.2 million domestic opening and only $86 million globally. This was the news after the first weekend at the box office.
Leaked memos suggested Disney was caught between appeasing traditional fans and pursuing their diversity initiatives, creating a fundamental tension that manifested in contradictory creative decisions.
Blue-collar drama A Working Man declares victory over Snow White. Yes, Jason Statham, A Working Man, just beat Snow White in its second weekend.
Costume designs were reportedly scrapped and redone multiple times as the studio struggled to find a visual identity that would satisfy all stakeholders. Then came the South Park episode that changed everything. The legendary animated series, known for its brutal takedowns of celebrity culture, featured an unmistakable parody of Rachel Zegler and the Snow White controversy.
We've seen the audience scores, one of the worst ratings we've seen in history on IMDb, with Snow White sitting at a 1.5 out of 10. But would it have a good hold at the box office? The media was telling us maybe this can have great legs. People are going to go watch it. We promise. You'll see.
In the brief but devastating segment, a caricature of Rachel was shown berating everyone around her, making over-the-top proclamations about saving society with her reimagined Snow White, and having a complete meltdown when the evil queen character received positive attention.
This is really a bad movie, and I apologize to Walt Disney himself. I'm sorry.
The satirical version of Ziegler ranted about the original film being problematic, while ignoring the opinions of her co-stars and fictional Disney executives. The parody was brutal, exaggerated, and, according to sources close to the production, hit uncomfortably close to home.
The original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
Say it louder so your other eye can hear you.
The South Park segment didn't just mock Zegler's public comments, it painted a damning portrait of alleged behind-the-scenes behavior that resonated with swirling rumors about the production. In one particularly scathing moment, the animated Zegler character screamed, "God forbid a woman dream about true love. We're all just sitting around here thinking maybe I could be president one day."
It was supposed to come out like a year and a half ago. And then we went after them so hard because of their variety of ridiculous sins that they actually went into full-scale reshoots on Snow White when we announced that we had a competitor.
The exaggerated dialogue seemed to mock the actress's reported ambition to transform Snow White into a feminist icon, while simultaneously suggesting that her creative vision lacked coherence or respect for the source material.
It was the first animated film that had the kind of Disney magic that had depth, that had absolute, it was riveting. And it's based, of course, on a Brothers Grimm story.
The animated caricature was shown storming off set repeatedly when anyone questioned her interpretation of the character or when another actor received praise. Within hours of the episode airing, clips went viral across every social platform.
That despite my flaws, and despite my cracks and my breaks, and there are many of them, that at every premiere and everything I do, people will wait in line to see.
Fans dissected each comedic jab, pointing out parallels to real interviews Zegler had given. Hashtags like Summer Not or Snow White Fiasco and Rachel Zegler began trending alongside references to Bob Iger's leadership struggles and Disney's broader woes. YouTube reaction videos multiplied overnight, with commentators pausing the South Park segment to analyze each satirical detail.
This started with the movie star Rachel Zegler, who I believe would be categorized as a loudmouth dope.
Several former Disney employees anonymously confirmed that while exaggerated for comedic effect, the portrayal contained uncomfortable kernels of truth about tensions within the production. Even casual observers who weren't initially invested in the Snow White controversy found themselves drawn into the drama through South Park's comedic lens. The animated show had managed to crystallize months of brewing tension into a few devastating minutes of satire. Word quickly spread that Rachel Zegler was absolutely furious about the parody. Sources close to the actress claimed she felt blindsided and unfairly portrayed as an unhinged diva who despised the original Snow White.
As an actor, you don't get to dictate anything. You don't get to dictate if a film actually happens. You don't get to dictate when it is shot, how it is shot, if you can ever speak about it to the public. You are simply just there to show up and say your lines and look the way they want you to look.
According to insiders, Zegler initially wanted to issue a statement clarifying her stance on the 1937 classic, but Disney executives reportedly pressured her to remain silent, fearing any response would only amplify the controversy. This alleged silencing came amid reports that Disney had already been limiting Zegler's public appearances, canceling scheduled talk show interviews and promotional events under the guise of scheduling conflicts.
God forbid a woman dream about true love. We're all just sitting around here, maybe I could be president one day. I hate men, I just want to be president. That screams Disney princess. Oh my God, I'm literally getting enraged. Once again, I feel like I'm back in 2022.
The morning after the South Park episode aired, Zegler reportedly demanded an emergency meeting with her publicity team and Disney leadership. Multiple sources described a tense video call where the actress expressed feeling abandoned by the studio.
Yeah, the entire film's about a love story. It's about a love story because that's what the point of the film is, and I'm sorry that chivalry in a man pursuing you is now deemed as stalking, which now it's kind of making sense why men are opting out of the dating scene.
And demanded they take action against what she perceived as defamation. Disney executives allegedly countered that engaging with South Park would be counterproductive, citing previous instances where celebrities who responded to the show's parodies only increased their visibility and made matters worse. The standoff reportedly ended with no resolution, deepening the rift between the star and the studio, bankrolling her controversial performance.
I was scared of the original cartoon. I think I watched it once and then I never picked it up again. I watched it for the first time in probably 16, 17 years.
The real reason for these promotional cancellations? Disney leadership was terrified that their star might make additional inflammatory remarks that would further alienate fans. One anonymous source characterized it as a preemptive strike against any commentary that might inflame the already volatile situation. A planned Saturday Night Live appearance in costume was scrapped, and a rumored musical showcase at Disney World mysteriously disappeared from the promotional calendar.
On the original production, I was scared of it. Oh, it was so weird. It was a stalker. Like, I feel like if you are taking on the most iconic Disney role ever, genuinely, like this was the most prolific Disney film, I feel like you should kind of have some sort of reverence for the original production.
Each time fans expected Zegler to appear, a last-minute announcement cited vague conflicts, but industry insiders insisted the studio was simply afraid to let her speak freely. The situation became so desperate that Disney supposedly implemented an unusual media strategy.
In addition to that, there was already an uproar about her being cast as Snow White because she is not Caucasian, she is a Latina, she is half Colombian, and so people were like, why were you cast in the first place? We just had a black Little Mermaid, now we're having a Latina Snow White, and she is literally called Snow White. This doesn't make sense.
Having Zegler record pre-approved responses to common questions that could be edited together to create the illusion of an unscripted interview. This approach was allegedly abandoned when the actress refused to participate, viewing it as insulting to her intelligence and professional standing. The gulf between star and studio continued to widen, with each side blaming the other for the escalating PR disaster.
Disney may be trying to throw Rachel Zegler under the bus a little bit. Disney absolutely deserves a lot of the blame, but so does Rachel Zegler. Let's not get it wrong.
One executive reportedly quipped in private, "We hired an actress and got an activist," referring to Zegler's outspoken stance on reimagining the character. Behind closed doors at Disney's Burbank headquarters, Bob Iger and his executive team were reportedly in crisis mode. Emergency meetings occurred almost daily as they scrambled to salvage what was quickly becoming a PR disaster. The Snow White remake represented not just a massive financial investment, but a test case for Iger's return to the CEO position.
What you do when you have this narcissistic nightmare trying to ruin a film.
With recent Disney films underperforming at the box office and growing criticism of the company's remake strategy, Iger could hardly afford another bomb. South Park's mockery had elevated a troubled production into a full-blown cultural punchline, exactly the kind of attention Disney didn't need. Iger, who had returned to the CEO role with a reputation for deftly handling corporate crises, found himself in an unprecedented predicament.
This movie was like you took the original Snow White and just put everything through this filter. So from the casting to the class politics, it all was just...
Disney's chief had previously navigated political controversies and talent disputes with relative ease, but the Snow White situation presented unique challenges. The controversy wasn't just about one outspoken actress or creative differences. It had become a symbolic battleground in larger cultural debates about tradition versus modernization. Conservative media outlets held up the Snow White remake as evidence of woke ideology destroying beloved classics, while progressive voices defended Zegler's right to reimagine the character for contemporary audiences.
This is what theaters look like across the world, and it just keeps getting worse. The memes. Let's say that you were in a Hollywood movie, and the trailer for that movie dropped on YouTube, and it instantly became the #1 most downvoted trailer in the history of the planet.
Caught in the middle was a corporation desperate to appeal to both camps while watching its $300 million investment rapidly lose marketability. Adding to the chaos were rumors that Zegler's relationship with Disney had deteriorated beyond repair.
Because this woman is a pig, and you fired Gina Carano for far less than this nonsense.
Insiders suggested she felt abandoned by the company, believing they were failing to defend her from mounting criticism. There were even whispers that her representatives were quietly considering legal action, claiming that Disney's decision to cancel her talk show appearances potentially violated contractual obligations regarding promotional opportunities.
Have they ever thought about maybe like a little bit of like, I don't know, vulnerability study, opposition research, that sort of thing before you go and hire some Zoomer who's a lunatic?
Yeah, but they're all lunatic. I mean, how many people in Hollywood, maybe not to this extent.
Whether this was a genuine threat or merely a negotiating tactic remained unclear. But the mere possibility of a lawsuit between a rising star and the entertainment giant generated even more speculation. The legal departments at both Disney and CAA, Zegler's agency, were reportedly exchanging increasingly tense communications.
The other problem is Disney keeps doing this shit.
Yeah.
They don't care how many times they lose money. I mean, this is...
They're going to learn a lesson on this one, though.
I don't think so. I mean, they're projected to lose between $200 and $400 million on this. I mean, they're still not going to learn their lesson.
The actress's team argued that Disney's strategy of limiting her public appearances constituted a breach of contract, while the studio countered that her comments had already damaged the film's commercial prospects. Neither side wanted a public legal battle, but the standoff created a toxic atmosphere where cooperation became nearly impossible.
It was so outdated, and how Rachel Zegler disrespected the original, and a classic from Walt Disney, something that completely saved Disney and changed the company and changed animation.
Marketing meetings devolved into arguments about how to promote a film starring an actress who couldn't be trusted to stay on message, while creative discussions stalled over fundamental disagreements about the character's portrayal. The tension with Gal Gadot also took center stage in the aftermath of the South Park episode. Initial excitement over Gadot's casting as the evil queen had been a bright spot for the troubled production.
Disney made a lot of terrible decisions casting her in general, the stupid CGI dwarves, completely bastardizing and destroying what the original movie meant in order to give us this modern age gobbledygook that they tried to pass off.
But stories of animosity between the two actresses became impossible to ignore. Reports claimed they had clashed over creative differences, with Zegler allegedly complaining that Gadot's improvised lines were hijacking crucial scenes. The tension reportedly became so severe that entire sequences were rumored to be cut to appease the lead actress. South Park's comedic portrayal of Snow White screaming at the evil queen for stealing her spotlight felt eerily prescient to those following the behind-the-scenes drama. One particularly damaging story described an incident during the filming of a pivotal confrontation between Snow White and the evil queen. According to multiple crew members, Gadot had received overwhelmingly positive feedback from the director after delivering an emotionally charged monologue. This praise allegedly infuriated Zegler, who demanded additional takes of her reaction shots and insisted that certain lines of Gadot's dialogue be cut to shift focus back to Snow White.
The last time I had the dream, I I was walking down the school hallway, and that's when I start to notice that something's wrong. Everyone I cared about has been systematically replaced. And finally, I want to scream, and I'm like, why are they replacing every single character with someone who is diverse?
Whether these accounts were accurate or exaggerated remained unclear, but the persistent rumors of discord between the lead actresses created the perception of a production in disarray. Godot herself maintained a diplomatic silence throughout the controversy, neither confirming nor denying the rumors of on-set tension. Her rare comments about the film focused on her excitement about playing an iconic villain rather than addressing the swirling controversies. This professional restraint earned her praise from industry veterans, but further highlighted the contrast with Zegler's more vocal approach. The two actresses' differing PR strategies became yet another subplot in the unfolding drama, with fans and commentators taking sides based on their preferred handling of the situation.
One major development going on now involves more to do with Rachel Zegler and her attitude towards South Park Studios and Paramount after learning about what they are planning for their upcoming special called the DEI Special.
Perhaps most concerning for Disney were the persistent rumors about multiple rounds of reshoots. What began as a straightforward remake had apparently undergone numerous transformations, with the script being repeatedly rewritten in a desperate attempt to find a workable third act. Each new leak painted a picture of creative chaos, with different factions within Disney pushing competing visions for the film. Some advocated for a traditional approach that honored the original, while others pushed for a more radical reimagining that would appeal to modern audiences. The result, according to insiders, was a confused mess that satisfied neither camp. Test screenings reportedly yielded disastrous results, with audience feedback highlighting inconsistent tone and character motivations that seemed to shift from scene to scene. The central problem appeared to be fundamental uncertainty about what the film wanted to be.
Hollywood, baby. I say, if I'm going to stand there 18 hours in a dress of an iconic Disney princess, I deserve to be paid for every hour that it is streamed on.
Was it a faithful adaptation with minor updates, or a complete reinvention that merely borrowed the iconic imagery? The production team had allegedly started with the latter approach based on Zegler's interpretation, then panicked and tried to course-correct toward traditionalism when early feedback proved negative. This creative whiplash resulted in a film described by one test viewer as schizophrenic, neither bold enough to fully commit to reinvention nor respectful enough to satisfy purists. As the weeks passed following the South Park episode, social media users spotted what they believed were cryptic posts from Zegler expressing irritation, possibly referencing the parody indirectly. Her supporters argued she was being unfairly silenced by corporate interests, while critics pointed to the comedic exaggerations in South Park as evidence that the actress had indeed lost perspective about her role in reimagining the classic tale.
I never want it to come off as me being ungrateful for the opportunities I have. I can also be having the greatest time and simultaneously wishing people would stop sending me death threats.
The divide grew increasingly bitter, with fans on both sides digging in their heels. One particularly mysterious Instagram story from Zegler featured the quote, "Truth becomes fiction when the fiction's true," without additional context. Fans and entertainment journalists immediately began analyzing whether this was a reference to the South Park controversy or a subtle dig at Disney's handling of the situation. Others interpreted it as acknowledgement that the parody contained elements of truth despite its exaggerated presentation. Whatever the intended meaning, the cryptic communication only intensified speculation about her state of mind and relationship with the studio. Cultural commentators began using the Snow White controversy as a case study in Hollywood's reboot culture. When studios attempt to overhaul beloved classics, they walk a dangerous tightrope between innovation and respect for tradition. Rachel Zegler, in championing a decidedly modern Snow White, had inadvertently ignited a firestorm that now seemed impossible to contain. It wasn't just her comments or the South Park parody in isolation. It was the perfect storm of an outspoken star, corporate indecision, alleged co-star friction, canceled promotional events, and intense fan reactions that created the media firestorm. The controversy raised fundamental questions about creative ownership and audience expectations. Did Disney owe traditionalists a faithful adaptation of their beloved classic? Or was reinvention necessary to keep the story relevant? Was Zegler's vision for a more independent, leadership-focused Snow White a legitimate artistic interpretation? or a misunderstanding of what made the character enduring. Industry veterans noted that successful remakes typically found ways to honor the original while thoughtfully expanding the narrative, a delicate balance that the Snow White production had apparently failed to achieve. For Disney, the stakes couldn't be higher. After multiple box office disappointments and the troubled launch of franchise entries across their portfolio, Snow White represented a chance to prove they could still successfully reimagine their classic properties. Instead, the conversation around the film had become so toxic that many wondered if audiences would give it a fair chance regardless of its quality. Some industry analysts suggested Disney might be forced to delay the release yet again, hoping the controversies would fade with time. The situation created a strategic nightmare for Disney's marketing department. Their options seemed equally problematic: embrace Zegler's modern interpretation and risk further alienating traditional fans, or pivot toward emphasizing classic elements and undermine their own lead actress's vision. Early promotional materials had already undergone several revisions, with initial emphasis on a bold new take gradually shifting toward the timeless magic returns in later iterations. The marketing team reportedly created multiple trailer cuts with dramatically different tones, unable to commit to a unified vision for selling the troubled production. Rachel Zegler herself appeared increasingly isolated as the drama unfolded. What began as excitement over landing an iconic Disney princess role had morphed into a career-threatening controversy. Casting directors and producers were undoubtedly watching how she handled the scrutiny, and fair or not, her association with the Snow White drama was coloring perceptions of her talent and professionalism. Some insiders suggested she was already looking beyond the film, seeking roles that might help her leave the controversy behind. The pressure on the young actress was immense. Having risen to fame through her acclaimed performance in West Side Story, Zegler had been hailed as one of Hollywood's most promising newcomers. Now, barely into her 20s, she faced a level of public scrutiny and backlash typically reserved for established stars who had built careers robust enough to weather controversy. Friends of the actress expressed concern about her mental health, suggesting that the combination of studio pressure, public criticism, and satirical mockery was taking a serious toll. Whether fair or not, her handling of the Snow White controversy would likely influence casting decisions for years to come. Perhaps the most telling sign of Disney's desperation came in the weeks following the South Park episode, when rumors emerged about yet another round of reshoots. Sources claimed entire musical numbers were being reworked to soften Zegler's portrayal and give more heroic moments to the evil queen in an attempt to shift focus away from the embattled lead. The absence of clear communication from Disney only fed the rumor mill, with fans filling in the gaps with increasingly wild speculation about the film's troubled production. The financial implications of these additional reshoots were staggering. Each day of filming reportedly cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. With the complexity of period costumes, elaborate sets, and visual effects driving expenses even higher, shareholders began expressing concern about the ballooning budget, questioning whether the film could possibly recoup its investment given the toxic cloud surrounding its production. Some financial analysts estimated that Snow White would need to gross over $800 million globally just to break even, a feat that seemed increasingly implausible as controversy continued to overshadow any artistic merits the film might possess. The broader cultural conversation around Snow White expanded to include discussions about the evolution of fairy tales and their place in modern society. Academics and cultural critics weighed in on whether these stories should be preserved as historical artifacts or continuously updated to reflect contemporary values. Some defended Zegler's interpretation, arguing that fairy tales have always evolved to reflect the values of their time. Others maintained that certain stories achieve classic status precisely because they tap into timeless themes that shouldn't be altered to suit passing political fashions. The debate transcended the specific film and became part of larger discussions about cultural preservation versus evolution. Industry veterans watched the unfolding disaster with a mixture of fascination and dread, recognizing that Snow White had become a cautionary tale about the perils of reimagining beloved properties without clear creative vision. Studio executives at competing companies reportedly adjusted their own remake strategies in response, placing greater emphasis on respecting source material while finding more subtle ways to incorporate modern sensibilities. One anonymous studio head admitted, Everyone's looking at Snow White and thinking, that could have been us. It's changing how the entire industry approaches these projects.